First, I wanted to start by welcoming you all to the first episode, well, actually, episode 0 of my new live streamings that are named Musical Reflections of a Slightly Conscious Being. I know it's a big name, and if it sounds weird for you guys, it will make a lot more sense after this episode, hopefully. Okay. So I think you guys all know me, but I want to start by introducing myself. I'm Sandra Lorenzo. I'm a music artist that is on a journey towards consciousness. And what do I mean by consciousness? For me, consciousness is our deepest and purest form. It's impossible to define consciousness because it's above words of the human language. It's something that you have to feel it. It comes from the inside. Consciousness can be found above or behind thought, behind logic. See it this way. Like, humans like to think that we are superior to other animals, for instance, because we have a rational mind, right? It's like we have another sense, if you consider mind as a sense. On this logic, consciousness is the next level, but it's not above survival instincts or the mind. It's the silent watcher behind them. It's what makes them all possible. Some people call it spirit, some people call it soul, some people call it energy. It's just different names for the same thing. And that's my definition of consciousness. So why slightly conscious? Because that's the point I see myself right now. I always had moments of consciousness throughout my life, but I remember having them as a kid, for instance, moments when there was no thought. It was just a silent, amplified awareness of my surroundings. It's something that I cannot explain. I remember like feeling a deep peace, warmth, a deeper knowing when I was like 8-9 years old. And I remember one of these moments that suddenly I start thinking, why can I not always feel like this? And why do I feel like this right now? So it's something that you cannot explain. It's extreme form of presence that no thought occurs. Some people can achieve it through meditation, but the real challenge is bringing that into your life. And that's why I say I'm slightly conscious right now, because at this point, I do have moments of that. Not all time, but I do have moments of that. And I began I do feel like our journey always starts when we are born, right? But my journey towards awareness and consciousness in a deeper level started around 6 years ago, actually. But during the last months have been, the journey has been extremely amplified in that sense. So, as many of you guys know, as I grew up and during my 20s, I was totally identified with my logical mind, and I still have a master's in mechanical engineer to address that. I approached my life always in a very rational way, and this is what I call being unconscious is when you are totally identified with your logical mind. As a result, I took a degree in mechanical engineering. I had an equally unconscious partner, and I tried my best to repress any emotions and anything else in my life. But what happens, and this usually happens in romantic relationships, happens in all relationships, but romantic relationships, usually they go deeper. And what happens is this unconsciousness and repression leads to big highs and lows. In my relationship, it was like that. Either we were madly in love, or the next moment we were arguing over the most futile of things. We were breaking up with each other and saying the awful things. And giving each other the silent treatment. That was actually later in my relationship. At first we had huge fights and arguments, and then over time they were replaced by the silent treatment. And there were moments that I'm not proud of, that basically we were two strangers living in the same house. And I was 16 years on a relationship. This was basically the first 10 years were totally unconscious. As a result, I fell into a huge depression in my late 20s, when I was around 29, 28, 29. Basically was when I finished my mechanical engineer degree. In the last year, I began getting into depression because I think a part of me began to realize that that wasn't what I wanted to do. But still, I managed to get myself through the end of the degree and start working. And first I got a job and I didn't like the job. I blamed the job. Then I got a different job. It was a lot better. And still I wasn't happy. So that was the moment I felt hard into depression. And basically I lost the will to do anything but music. I remember days that I didn't even want to get out of bed. That's how bad I felt. The only thing was music. Music was what helped me got through it. It was the only thing bringing joy into my life. It was the only thing that made me feel better. And usually what happens in those moments is that, I don't know what happened, to be honest, but in that moment there was like this spark inside of me. I cannot explain it, but I remember the moment when I decided that I didn't want to live that way anymore. And I remember that I was sleeping in the couch. That's how bad things were. My partner was in the bed and I was in the couch, and I couldn't sleep. The couch was deeply uncomfortable and I was cold. And it was a Friday night. And I remember, like, this is not for me. I don't want this life. What am I doing? And I got out of the couch. I stormed into the bedroom. I woke up my partner. He was already asleep. And I started doing my bag, putting some clothes in a bag. And he was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I cannot take this anymore. I don't want this life anymore. And I'm going to my parents' home. I don't want to be here anymore. And I remember him saying, oh, but you have work on Monday. And I remember looking into his eyes and saying, I'm quitting my job. I don't want my job. I'm tired of this. I don't want this anymore. And on that moment, he knew I was serious. And that's what happened. I quit my job. I quit my relationship. I got back into my parents' home. I had approximately 3,000 euros in savings, which is very low. But I managed to make it last for 7 months. I was living in my parents' place. And I have to say that was the beginning of my awakening journey. It was the awareness that the life I was living wasn't what I wanted. Wasn't what I wanted for me. It didn't feel right. I didn't know, I didn't know what I was going to do. All I know is that wasn't for me. And during those 6-7 months, I lived from savings. I focused on finding out how to make a living as a musician. Back then I thought that was the key to my happiness. If I could make a living out of being as a musician, everything would turn out okay. But along the way, I also developed an interest in self-help books. And that's the way I managed to get out of depression as well. Approximately 1 year later, I finally managed to become a full-time musician. Between that, I went back to engineering for a short while just to earn more money while I was building my music business. And but when I became a full-time musician, that brought me much joy. But the truth is, the rest of my life was still a mess. Meanwhile, I had gotten back together with my former partner. Our relationship was more dysfunctional than ever. Besides arguments, now there was also cheating on his part. And music, again, was my savior. It was the thing that managed to bring joy into my life. But everything else was just causing an immense suffering on me. For some reason, I couldn't understand back then why I kept forgiving my partner, why I kept accepting him back every time, he would break up with me after some small argument, and then he would come back after a few days saying how sorry he was, and I would forgive him, even knowing that he was still cheating all the time. And oh gosh. Anyway, this lasted for 1 year, and after 1 year, the cheating stopped, but the damage was done. I totally froze. I froze all my feelings. It was so weird because it's like I had accepted that I couldn't be without this person, but I also couldn't feel anything towards him. It was so weird. Every time we would break up, I was in this spiral pain that it was like an addiction. And I know now it's like an addiction, when you are so addicted to a person that you don't recognize how bad that person is actually being for you. It's just like a drug. And that was when I realized that I needed help, and I couldn't do it alone. I read the books, I had the job that gave me immense joy, and I felt a lot better as an individual person as well. But when it came to my relationship, I had no idea what to do. And that was the thing, like, I couldn't break up with this person, but I also couldn't be on a relationship as well. And so initially I proposed couples therapy. Looking back now, I know that would have been the best option for us. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. After 6 months, there were multiple excuses, and after a while, I just decided to go ahead and do therapy on my own. Part of me actually felt that maybe if I went to therapy alone, my partner would get inspired to get into therapy as well. Well, after 2 years, that didn't happen. I went 2 years to therapy, did 4 hours per week, true thing. This wasn't your regular therapy, though. And I wanted to talk a bit about my therapist back then. Her name is Louisa. Now she's more than just, now she's my friend as well. We became friends. And we met each other at one of my live shows, actually. I was performing and she was there in the audience. She's actually a partner of a friend of mine. And, it's interesting that she told me that she immediately felt like she would like to work with me on that live show. But I was actually the one who reached out to her looking for therapy. And she's an holistic therapist, and this means that she doesn't follow a rational approach. She sees people as a whole, not just on the mental level. So that means mental and spiritual side. And on the very first session, I I remember I couldn't understand like 1/3 of what she said to me. I felt my head like hurting with so much information that she gave me, but the few things I understood started opening up places in me. And I started realizing how much influence we have in our own lives, how much control we have in our own lives, and that things don't happen to us, they happen for us. And most importantly, that we cannot control the actions of others, but we can control how much we allow that to affect us. And so every time I would go there and I started complaining about others, being my partner, my other people in my life, she would immediately call me up on that. She challenged me so much. I cannot express in words how grateful I am for her. She's Portuguese. She gives consultations in Portuguese. But in if any of you guys need or are interested, just reach out to me. I give you guys her contact. She doesn't accept everyone. She doesn't work with everyone. She's very selective in the sense that she just works with people that she feels she can help. And I cannot recommend her enough. She's amazing. Later, while I was still doing therapy, I also found Abraham Hicks. And Abraham Hicks, it's well, how can I define Abraham Hicks? Search Abraham Hicks on YouTube and listen for yourself. There are many 15-minute videos of them online, and that helped me out immensely too, to take responsibility for my own life and my own emotions without blaming other people. And during those 2 years, a huge shift happened in me. I developed a healthy relationship with my parents, both of them, and I always had a very difficult relationship with my parents, with both of them. With my dad, I always had this tendency of trying to be her parent. And it was so beautiful to see that when I stopped trying to be her parent, his parent, he started becoming a father to me. And the relationship I have with him right now, it's full of love. It's so respectful. It's something that I never thought I could have. And with my mom, it was even harder because my mom tried to commit suicide when I was 8 years old, and she suffers from bipolar disorder with schizophrenic tendencies. And even though she, fortunately, she survived, but for my child version, she died. And I totally froze any feelings I had towards my mom back then. Of course, I didn't do it consciously. It was totally unconscious, but it was something that I unblocked with therapy. And as my love started to flow towards her, I could immediately see the difference with her. I unfortunately, I could never have this conversation with her because of her problem. It's hard. She's just not on the same level of awareness that allows me to have this conversation with her, but words weren't necessary. It's just the way I was with her changed, and I could immediately see the change in her as well. And she started trusting me unconditionally, and she tells me everything. And for someone with her condition, that is really a lot, because she has a really hard time trusting people. It's part of her illness, of course. And this was just the beginning of my process in therapy. I began feeling so much happier with myself, and not so reliable on not just relying on other people, and of course not so dependent on my romantic relationship. I wasn't getting mad that often, and when my partner got angry, I just let him be and not give him much attention until everything diffused a bit. Mark, thank you so much. Thank you for that. So even though my relationship was no longer taking such a big toll out of my life, it was still bothering me. I felt that my partner had confusing thoughts about me being in therapy and the changes that I've been through. I felt like on one hand, he could see that I was no longer fueling the arguments and that I was happier. But on the other hand, I felt like, I think he also felt a bit abandoned because I wasn't giving energy to this unhealthy dynamic that we had. Like, one thing that I will try, and this will be not only on this session, but in all of them, is I will try to refrain from talking about the feelings of someone else. Because, Of course, I will mention facts about my relationship, but I cannot talk about his feelings. Like, I don't know. That's his place. That's not mine. I will talk about my feelings and facts, but that will be pretty much it. And the fact is that after 2 years, he still refused to search help. I did ask him constantly to search for help, but you know, part of me after 2 years, of course, I began to think like maybe it was time for me to let go. And on my 34th birthday, before that, I decided to take a 2-week vacation in my grandma's house, in the house I am right now. And during those 2 weeks, I hoped some distance would bring clarity for both of us. They did bring clarity for me. And back then, I realized that my situation couldn't go on as it was. The thought that made me aware, that really hit home for me, was realizing that I have been with this person for 15 years and I didn't see myself getting married or even having kids with this person because I didn't feel safe on the relationship. And that was the realization that did it for me. Either I would accept my partner as he was, and this was based on his actions and not what he said he would do, not his words, or I would have to let go. And this time I would not leave any road open for us to come back, because that happened in the past. I decided to invest 1 more year on the relationship. And I kept this promise to myself, and I never revealed this to anyone during that whole year, because I wanted it to be my thing. And that last year that we were together, I know it was very transformative for both of us. I know he tried his best. We both tried our best, but the decision was very clear to me after 1 year. For a few months, then after that, and this was, of course, in December. This was on my 35th birthday that we broke up. And for a few months, I had to deal with the splitting assets, and I had to block all my feelings. It was a really hard time for me, but I managed to get through it in the best way possible. And then I came here, and I've been here since March. And there was a huge relief for a while. And this is something that is weird, because some people told, oh, now it's hard to be alone and all of that. And for me, I felt such relief. I slept for many hours. I took naps. I was exhausted. And I remember I was feeling, it was, even just making meals, everything was so much easier, because I didn't have to carry all that pressure of having of being with someone that could just set off at anything. So for a while I did feel relief, but after like a month or something, I started reliving everything over and over again. I was out of the relationship, but it was just like the relationship was still alive. The suffering was here, very, very much alive. And this time, for the very first time in my life, there was no one around for me to blame. Because, I've been in a relationship since I was 18 years old. And before that, I was living with my parents. So there was always someone else to blame. This time, I was alone. And I was feeling miserable. And now what? And I guess that's the one of the most transformative things about being alone, is that you have to face yourself, and there's no one around for you to blame, only yourself. And I guess that's why many people in this world cannot face being alone. And luckily, again, just like Abraham Hicks entered my life recommended by a friend recommended me Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle, you can find his video. He has 2 books that were extremely transformative for me. He also has YouTube videos that you guys can watch for free. His book, The Power of Now, is one of the most transformative books I ever read. That's when I realized that even though I was already taking responsibility for my actions and my words towards others, I wasn't taking responsibility for my own negative thoughts and emotions. And I was actually feeding them because I was constantly reliving them in my head. And with Eckhart, that's how I was introduced to the concept of ego. Of course, I had heard about ego it's raining outside. Okay, I wasn't expecting rain. I have clothes. That's fine. Anyway, we're talking about ego. And I've heard about the concept of ego. I think everybody has a notion of what ego is. But I started learning from ego. I started learning Carl Jung, Viktor Frankl as well. And then going back to Eckhart Tolle again with the other book he has, A New Earth, where he deals more into the ego concept. And with this new awareness, suddenly everything became clear. It's like, it's what happens when you begin to recognize your own ego. And some people call it shadow. And if you heard some people telling about shadow work, it's ego work. It's basically the same thing. And what is the ego? The ego is the conditioned voice that is up here. It's in your head. And saying this in terms that you will understand for sure is just think about an animal that has been mistreated, okay? Usually they are afraid or they react badly towards humans, right? Because when they see a human, they are conditioned to believe that humans are dangerous or humans will hurt them, right? So basically the ego is what happens in humans, and ego is just reacts to other humans. It's just has this reaction. So that's why some people are aggressive, some people are get offended easily. It's just a self-defense mechanism. And unconsciousness is when we allow our egos to control our thoughts, words, or actions. You know, so in some cases controls other people's actions, right? And when we are unconscious, we identify 100% with our ego. And so it takes us over, right? Is when we believe that the voice that we have talking in our head is telling the truth. And it's not always telling the truth, okay? Because again, the ego is conditioned by our past, our experiences, and just because some people hurt us, it doesn't mean everyone will hurt us, right? The journey towards the consciousness starts by being aware of your own ego. It's because once you're aware of it, you no longer identify with it. You are the consciousness. And what is the consciousness is the silent observer behind it. You begin to recognize also when other people, and this happens a lot, unfortunately, in our world, are entirely identified with their egos. And so it's also easier to forgive and not take their words and actions personally, right? Because, you know, they are just being they are just being victims of their previously conditioned selves, you know? And you also forgive yourself for your previous unconscious moments. And this was the hardest part for me. It was, how could I say some things, and how could I do some things, and how could I spend so many years in my life on a relationship with someone that did all these things to me? And this is just the ego feeling sorry for itself. What's the use of feeling this, right? I mean, you cannot change your past. So the change in my life has been beyond words after this realization. It's I still have moments of unconsciousness. I still struggle sometimes Sometimes I still fall victim of my own ego, but I quickly regain control. Usually I don't stay there. I stay there for some seconds, sometimes some minutes, and then I come back and realize, wait, oh, here I go again. And what is being conscious is, I don't know, you feel like this deep peace inside, something that you cannot put in words. It's just, some consequences are like, I no longer seek or search for satisfaction in the external, because I recognize that's one of the ways the ego has to satisfy itself. Only this, it's always searching for something to make it happy, and then that never happens. And this is called an egoic trap, is, when you search for satisfaction outside, but what happens is that external satisfaction is always followed by equal dissatisfaction. For instance, let me give you examples. It will be clear. I know maybe this is too much information for you guys. Please let me know, okay? If you have any doubts, please post them in the chat, and I will answer in the end, okay? But please feel free, okay? If you don't understand something, let me know, okay? Examples of these egoic traps is consumism. When you buy something, for instance, when you buy something, there's this illusion that you'll be happier after you get this thing. And what happens? You get the thing, you get happy for a while, and then, right? And then you have to buy another thing because the satisfaction went away. This is because it's egoic. It's the ego fuels itself from these cycles of satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Eating something, for instance, this chocolate cake, I have to eat it, and then you go eat it, and then you feel really sorry about yourself, or you have a bad stomach because you ate too much, right? Some people cannot, they start eating and they cannot get enough, right? Because it's their addiction, right? And this also happens with people, usually falling, when you feel like this huge attraction towards something, towards someone, and that you really want to be with that person, and you think that person will be the answer and the solution to all your problems. And yeah, you are happy for a while, and then the person does something that, because a person is just a person, and will not be perfect, because no one is perfect, and that person will never be the illusion that the ego constructs in your own head. And so the arguments will start, because that person is no longer the perfect person. And so this is what happens. And when I say this doesn't mean that I don't appreciate life or any of these things. On the contrary, I enjoy them even more, because there's not an egoic expectation attached to it. I mean, I can enjoy a chocolate cake, and I love chocolate. Yesterday I enjoyed a chocolate cake with chocolate ice cream and mint ice cream. And it was delicious. I enjoyed it deeply. But I ate a bit and I was totally happy with it. I didn't have to keep eating because I just wanted to feel that taste, and that was it. When I buy something, and that's another thing I noticed, that I rarely buy stuff, but sometimes I feel like, I want to give myself a present, or I want to buy something. And when I do, I have this deeper satisfaction of getting that something. But most times I don't get things. And that's amazing, because I don't spend money. And when I am with someone, that's the huge difference. Because when you are with someone without any kind of expectations, you're just with that person for the pure enjoyment of being with that person and enjoying their company, the interaction gets extremely satisfying. And there's actually no words. You have to experience it, being totally present with a person without having additional thoughts and expectations. Being free of the mental pollution, because in the end it's a mental pollution that you have in your head, right? Allows to enjoy everything deeper. And Another thing that happens with ego is that ego loves time, and it loves to dwell in the past, where it can feed on resentment, blame, guilt, regret, or in the future, where it can feed on anxiety, stress, insecurity, because you imagine all these case scenarios in your head that they are never realistic, right? But what happens to the present moment while you are thinking of the past or while you are dwelling in the future? You let your dinner burn, you are doing things in automatic pilot, and you are not experiencing your present moment, which is actually all you ever have in this life, right? The past happened in your present. The future will only happen in the present as well. So if you are constantly living on the past and the future, you are not experiencing your life. And for many years, I was trapped on this, and I come from I was guilty of both. I would dwell in the past, and I would dwell in the future as well. In this, I do feel like being on so many pressure right now, because I was trying to grieve my relationship, and that's the past part, right? And also now I'm building my own home, and I'm dealing with all these processes, and this is future. So, but I'm in between. So I was just stuck on these two situations, and I was going crazy on it. Luckily, I have friends that recommended me the best books in the world, by correct order, and yeah, and it allowed me to be here talking with you guys from this point of view that I am today. And let's face it, that's the thing. I mean, if you are in the present moment, what worries do you have, right? Like, for instance, in this moment, I'm here talking with you guys. The internet is working, the audio is working. It's raining outside. I have clothes drying out. It's fine. They will get dry tomorrow. I'm not like in a rush to get them. It's fine. Like, what's the big deal? And that's why the ego doesn't like you to be in the present, because the present is too simple. The ego is always trying to get you to think about the past or the future. It wants to trick you into believing that your life is so much more complicated than it really is. And that's the point I'm in right now. I love what I do, the freedom it gives me. I'm enjoying being single, but I'm also constantly meeting new interesting people and enjoying the interaction with them. I'm on the process of building a home for myself, and until then, I'm living on my old grandma's home. That it's a magical place that makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. There are many animals that I feed, plants that I water, and now I'm here sharing all of this with you in the first episode. And I have 16 original songs to share with you guys. And I totally lost track of what I was saying. Okay, here I am. And with these 16 songs that I wrote while I was in my very unconscious and very egoic state, I talk about, and I'm looking here because I have all the songs written here in the board. I don't know if you guys can see it there. See all songs written in the board. And they are all about complaining. They're all about nagging. They're all about how hard my life is and how hurt I am by what you did and what you didn't do and things like that ego loves. So I will be introducing these songs to you on every episode. You see, episode 0 didn't have a song because I wanted to tell about um, my journey, and also to let you know in the point I am right now. I do apologize, the camera is so yellow because I didn't have time to correct the coloring, but that's fine. At least I look, well, I don't look healthy. I look like Hulk. Not like the yellow Hulk. Anyway, I will be interpreting these songs, and then I'll be talking about the feelings and the point that I was in when I wrote it, and then I will interpret them from the point I'm in right now, and I promise I will just not say, "Oh, here I go nagging again." Well, I'll go deeper with you guys because I do feel, and ever since I'm single, most of my friends are in relationships, and sometimes I watch the way their relationships work, and I realized it's urgent to share this knowledge because I see so many people trapped in these processes, and sometimes they change partners, and then they keep getting stuck on the same patterns because that's what happens. I mean, if you are just changing your partner but you don't change yourself, you're gonna end up having the same problems with different people. And I see so many people, unfortunately, falling into that trap. And that's also one of the reasons why I decided to work on myself before rushing into a relationship with another person, because I recognized that I wasn't ready, and that there were things that I wanted to understand and to heal before moving on. And it's interesting to know that in these months that I've been alone, I already felt attracted by 2 different guys, and they both have complementary egos to my own ego, and lower levels of consciousness, which is kind of, and I realize that's my pattern. I feel attracted to people that have the same bipolar ego as I have, because I do have a bipolar ego, but with a lower level of consciousness. And why is that? Because I grew up being a parent of my parents, and so I like to be the parent in the relationship, and that is not acceptable for me at this point. I want a partner. I don't want to be a parent, at least not yet. First, I want to find a partner, then we'll think about being a parent. But this just to let you guys know that how important it is for us to be aware of this, so we don't fall victims of the same patterns over and over again, and we can then become better human beings and find people that share that with us, and it's impressive, very, very impressive, that lately, and when I say lately, in the past months, I'm constantly surrounded by kind people, by nice people. I have very, very nice interactions with everyone around me. Sometimes there are some words shared, even when sometimes I meet people that later I realized that it was just a short interaction and we won't interact again, but it was still a very pleasant interaction. And every interaction you have with other human beings, if you do it in a conscious way, you learn and you grow. And of course, if you are more spiritual, I will try, I'm a very spiritual person at this point, but I will try to keep my conversations in a more approachable level, in a more practical level, if that makes sense. I think it's more the word I'm looking for, because I'm that person as well. I'm very practical, and even though I am a spiritual person, I also am a factual person, and I like to I like to see that, you know, sometimes science goes too far, sometimes spirituality goes too far, and I do feel like the balance is right there in the middle. So that's the point that I want to bring here to these streams, and this is what I have for you guys. Okay, in the next episode, by the way, I wanted also to say that if you are a conscious supporter on Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee, you'll get to know the theme and the song of the next episode in advance, and you can actually and you can ask questions that I'll be answering live, okay, about the theme if you want me to talk about something specific. You can also ask questions on the lives here, but I will only answer them if I have time, okay? But yeah, guys, 10 minutes, we have 10 minutes, so if you guys want to ask anything, go ahead. Please let me know that you're still there. I've been talking a lot. Let me know if what I said made sense. I would love to hear your feedback. I know that was a lot of information, and I know that was a totally different theme than that what I had previously going on for you guys. Is just many things changed, and I also changed a lot in these past months. And so if you see a difference, it's normal. Okay, I got some comments on my previous teaser on Instagram about that. Some comments about like I was speaking on a different way, or some comments about even my appearance. But yeah, I do feel like everything is a result of the shift that I'm going on the inside, if that makes sense. But I think what really matters is that I feel in a way that I've never felt before. It's like everything makes so much more sense now, and we live in a quite insane world, but it makes sense that it's insane because most people, unfortunately, are still very stuck in their minds. But I also feel very happy for being here, sharing this new life perspective that I have. And hopefully, and I really hope this from the bottom of my heart, hopefully it will help some of you make sense of some things that we have. I know, you know, when there were some moments in my life, and I'm thinking about, I spoke about my therapist, Louisa, I spoke about Abraham Hicks, and I spoke about Eckhart Tolle, and there were many more, Brendon Burchard, but Brendon Burchard is more of a coach and not much of a spiritual teacher. And I can't even imagine where I would be without them, you know, because they were such an important part of my awakening journey. So, of course, I don't compare to them, not even close, because that's why I put the slightly conscious, because I'm still, oh gosh, I have a big ego in me, but I accept it as part of me, you know, it's part of me. I recognize it, but it's just like that. It's just one moment at a time, accepting the point where I am, and making peace with that.